very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, you know, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something, you know.
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Jehovah Tiger.
What's going on, guys? And welcome to another addition, whatever you want to call it, of the Warcry podcast. I'm your host, Jehovah Tiger, and I told you I was going to be kind of on a little bit of a, not a hiatus. I guess it's not even a hiatus when you're gone for like a week. But, you know, content's going to be a little slower. Patreon is, I guess while I'm thinking about it, Patreon is up, guys. I'm going to be releasing an episode this week regarding the Lucky Star Casino. I had two witnesses. Well, really 3 or 4, but 2 that I actually got some confirmations on some things. But I have 2 witnesses who has seen the video and it has given me a lot of information about that incident. But the kicker is it's going to be Patreon only. So if you want to hear that, it'll be out this week sometime. I'm thinking about may just do a live stream, let y'all come in live. So if you pay your $5, you get in, and then you know we're on and cooking. But the Patreon, I don't have the link out, but the link, if you just type in on patreon.com / Warcry podcast, I'm there. But another thing, I will be having another guest on sometime after Thanksgiving. I'm trying to figure out days right now with the holiday and all that good stuff. But someone who has a lot of interesting stories came to my came to my mind about the hyenas in Oklahoma. This person has a story that they saw about a hyena. So, you know, we got some things cooking. You know, I couldn't stay away. I had to get the content going. I got a notification from YouTube saying, you are now able to monetize. So if you see in the corner right there, I have super chats activated. So if you want to donate to the podcast and help support the podcast, you know, that would be amazing. And if you don't want to give anything, like and comment and subscribe. It's easy. So go in there, hit like, comment, hey, I loved when you guys talked about this, and, you know, whatever. Or you can just say, hey, it doesn't matter. But supporting the podcast in all different ways and different functions. I finally got my video set going. Y'all can see my crazy hair. Y'all finally can understand what I look like. I'm sure you guys have seen me on, you know, different things. But so if you're not on the YouTube version of this, you are seeing me. Now my camera is a little too close, and y'all can see my my laundry in the back, but that's all right. You know, there's a poster that I have. If you can see up there next to, when I used to do TikTok lives, they used to be out there a lot, or that poster. But it has all the tribes, basically going all the way like from Canada down to South America. So, but I'll get the camera set up. I may move it a little further away. I'll be looking tired right now as I'm looking at myself, but that's all right. But I'm very excited about this episode. I have been researching this gentleman for quite some time. You know, I got tagged in one of his videos, and you know, I thought it was really interesting. He has a big background. He's all over the place. But joining me to the show, Mr. Beary, the Apache Storyteller. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good, Yehola. Not too bad. Thanks for inviting me out here. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, you know, I think at some point, you got a couple thousand, right? Something like.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to build up to that level. I was like, a couple of people probably listen.
Yeah, man. That's and like I said, someone tagged me in it, and she may be in the chat later on. We'll see if she shows up. Um, but uh, but kind of getting this conversation going. I know people are probably waiting to hear some stories.
Yeah,
Um, but
I'm
before we
sure.
get to some stories, and before we start hitting some topics, I'm kind of curious if you know anything about, and I'm sure you do. You get, going, with the spooky stuff, and then also too with the TikTok.
Oh, how do I get going?
Yeah, how did you? Yeah, how did you start? Like, did you have a story or experience or something happened to you where you're like, what, man, I'm gonna dive into this.
Well, before I started telling my stories, I was watching like because I'm a former law enforcement officer. I heard couple officers, tell a couple of stories, and but it was like maybe one or two stories of something paranormal. Uh, I would check most of their videos to see if they have any more because that always sparked my interest. And what uh, I didn't find nothing much, so I figured, hey, I got more stories than they do. I don't know why. For some reason, I always came across the paranormal and extraordinary stuff. Uh, a lot of times it was with my cousin Daniel, and he was security, and he used to follow me around, and we used to blame each other. It's you, blame each other, saying that it follows the other guy. Well, honestly, I think it was just me that everything is just attracted and comes my
Mm.
direction.
Yeah, man. That's one thing that's kind of crazy too. I don't know. It's the same thing with me too as well. Sometimes
Yeah,
I don't know how I end up in these places where I'm at, or seeing things that maybe you're not supposed to see or whatever. But growing up, did you where are you? I guess what location are you? What state you're located in, and who are you? Obviously Apache, but
yeah.
in your area growing up, did you have any kind of crazy weird stuff happening going on?
Oh yeah. I grew up on the St. Carlos Apache tribe here in Arizona. We're just like 2 hours east of Phoenix, and I grew up with a bunch of stuff. My great grandmother, she was alive when I was a young kid, and she was a strong medicine woman,
Mm,
and she used to always uh, ask me if I see things, and um, I told her yes, because one I remember one time as a kid, I woke up middle of the night to go get a something to drink, and me and my brother shared a bunk bed. When I was getting ready to crawl down, I peeked over the edge of the bunk bed, and I seen a figure that was glowing at the bottom of the bed, looking straight up at me, and it turned around and went straight out the wall, like straight outside. And that was my first encounter that I can recall. And I was probably about 8 years old.
mm,
Then after that, it's just been nonstop.
man, and what do you think that was?
All I remember is seeing uh, a white glow face and a pair of dark eyes. That's all I recall. I can't
Man,
say if it was a person or if it was something else.
man, yeah, that's and especially with your grandmother growing up, knowing those old ways and the medicine and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
Was there ever what was some other kind of advice that she'd give you growing up
She
about
just
that
told
kind
me
of
don't
stuff?
like not to be scared of it. Uh, every time that you would see something, if I would ever see anything, if it was bothering me, just tell it. Leave me alone. I'm not bothering you, so don't bother me. So a lot of my encounters, wherever I had one, I always tell whatever it was, hey, leave me alone. I'm not bothering you. Don't bother me. Don't come
Mm,
at me with all that stuff. And it'll stop. It'll stop for a while. Then Some of it start acting up again. But it's not just the paranormal like ghosts and stuff. But I've had encounters with we call him the tall hairy man
Mm.
here in where my other grandma where she lived at. She lived in a real very remote area where her house was the only house out here. It's called Calva, and she always used to say the tall hairy man takes care of me. He watches over me at night, and I've had encounter with that. Uh, just a bunch of other stuff. I've seen stuff flying that I cannot explain what they were, like flying in the sky. I know it wasn't no bird.
Mm. You know that, and that's with the, they just recently just came out and said UFOs are real. They
Yeah,
just a little bit ago, about a couple weeks, actually 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's really interesting. And I know you guys, Flagstaff's real known for that out there.
yeah. Flagstaff is about maybe 3 hours north of where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm still in the desert area.
Yeah, in the middle of you were saying before we went live, you said there's the owls and the coyotes was around you.
Yeah, over to my on my left side over here, you can hear a bunch of coyotes, and they're not too far from where I'm at. And over my right side, there's an owl perched over, and I know that in our culture, the coyotes are tricksters, and for an owl, it's their messengers, whether if it's well, mainly for something bad. But he's been hooting away and talking for a while.
Mm. Yeah, man, it's same here in Oklahoma. Not really so much coyotes, more owls, but
Yeah,
a lot of tribes here, man. Hey, you hear an owl or something, you kind of just got to go the other way. You ain't trying to hear
yeah.
that.
Well, the other night I did a recording. I posted it too on TikTok. Of this owl really screeching away, and the funny part about that was it only started screeching when it saw me, but I couldn't find where it was. It was out in the brush area, and it did that for a long time, making a high pitched screech. And as soon as I walked away and gained my distance from it, it stopped.
Mm. Man, man. I haven't heard. Honestly, though, I haven't. I think the last time I heard an owl might have been when I was living with my parents in my early 20s.
Yeah,
Yeah, there used to be one. God, I'm getting goosebumps. I don't really like talking about him, but we're gonna talk about him. I was out. This is years ago. I might have been still in high school, but one time, my mom was mowing
yeah,
out in our back pasture, and I'm outside shooting, basketball, and I go inside. I always felt like something was watching me out in the wood line, and so I go inside, and she was, she came in sometime later and said, "Yeah, I kept hearing like a hoot laughter
yeah.
out in kind of the woods," and I was like, "Ugh." I always feel something watching me out there. Me and my brother be like looking. It's like feel like somebody's in that
Yeah,
tree line.
yeah. Yeah, you always get that feeling that something's watching you. I get that a lot, especially when I venture out into the desert and want to be out there and collect my own thoughts. But I always get that feeling like something's there, something's watching me. Usually I find what it is. Like that one time I found a bobcat that's been stalking me for a while. And the only reason I found it is I was looking at a prickly pear cactus, and there was an opening part about that big, and I was looking at it saying something look off, and finally I seen the eyes blink. And I said, oh man, there's a bobcat in there.
Yeah, and another. I'm just reading the chat here. Somebody said, "I know our tribe down here. He's from Louisiana." Uh,
Yeah,
said our tribe down here don't like owls. When we hear hooting outside, it said that he's telling you, or that entity or that being, or that person, it could be in person too, but it said that he's trying to tell you about the death of somebody. You hear
yeah.
anything like that?
Oh yeah. Usually the messengers, they're a messenger of death. Something bad will happen, mainly death. So it's telling us to be cautious, maybe to start saying our prayers, because someone's praying bad, maybe wishing death upon me or my family. So I do keep, our yellow pollen nearby, and as soon as the sun starts coming up, that's when I pray. Because I told you, I learned a lot of stuff from my great grandma, and she always tells not to pray at night, but as soon as you see that sun coming up, you know, face the east, welcome the sun, and start sending your prayers and use that pollen. Uh, it's just like you would say, it's holy water.
Mm. Let me ask you this. I know I'm going to every time that every time I do an interview with somebody who has who knows certain things, I always get somebody messaging me like, "Man, why didn't you ask this question?" And I have a question that I just came up with.
Okay.
Uh, why do you just kind of from your grandmother's point of view? Why did she tell you not to pray at night? I know there's going to be people that say Christians will say, "Hey, we pray right before bed." It's
Yeah.
dark outside. But can you tell us why she said that?
Okay. I did grow up in a Christian church. I was brought up Christian, but my grandma still practiced the old ways. Never been baptized, and what she used to say was only the bad people pray at night because they use the darkness to cover their bad prayers.
Mm,
Uh, that's why if you want to pray good, um, pray in a good way, do it when the sun's coming up, so that way, you and the Creator will see your prayers a lot better, and accept it rather than using the darkness and the the bad things or bad beings to cover your prayers and hide it from everybody else, and take it to where it needs to go to for it to uh, do its bad the first to do its bad things.
man, that's yeah, okay. That does make sense. Especially I was always told growing up. Like I said, um, I went to Christian church. Growing up, I stopped
Yeah.
going when I was 18 because I don't know, man. Something about organized religion just doesn't sit right with me. But that's another conversation for another day. But
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you.
yeah,
I
yeah, we can go on. I can go on a long tangent about that, man. But
I would I'll join you in an episode on that, because
yeah.
I was sent to a private school where it was all Christian.
I don't know, man. It's just something. And if you're Christian and you're into church and things like that, we mean no disrespect. Everyone can believe how they want to believe,
Yeah.
and practice how they want to practice. But it sounds like both of us agree that like, it just wasn't for us. I don't know if it's ancestors pulling on us or what, but I don't know. I sometimes I always wonder, and I'm kind of curious what you think about this. You
Yeah.
know, that guilt. Like there'd be sometimes, man. I'd go to church and especially growing up, my entire family on both sides went to church, and
Yeah.
they'd always say, medicine and church need to stay separate. You don't need to mix them things. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Oh yeah, but I see some. I have seen some churches use like the part of the Apache culture with how they worship, and I always wondered if, if because the church I went to was, you can't mix the two. You're not supposed to mix the two, because the Apache culture is not worshiping Christ. It's the pastor used to tell us it's devil worshiping. And but that's another conversation for something else.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, and kind of just, I guess we could pivot on over here to another direction, but um, so you got a bunch of stories, and um, out that way. I guess really out west is more where I hear this.
Yeah.
And this has been kind of, I don't know if you've, like I said, I don't know if you've heard anything about this. And this is, if I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. But anything about the goat man out there?
Well, we've seen them. We've seen it. Me and my cousin Daniel. Uh, I don't know why it's always with him where we always see something or hear something, especially. But we used to kick back at the spot that was the old BIA forestry complex, and that was our area to hang out because nobody was around, and we always parked there after midnight when nothing was going on when I was a police officer, and we heard something in the bushes, and these are like maybe like 3 foot tall bushes that were off in the distance. We heard something rattling in there. We thought it was a jackrabbit at first, and it kept on moving around in there, and we were kind of laughing about it, maybe thinking maybe that two rabbits were going at it and trying to make some babies in there. So after a while, I grabbed my flashlight. No, Daniel grabbed his flashlight. We shined it over there, and sure enough, we seen this little. Oh man, I want to say maybe 3 to 4 foot tall, half man, half goat, just come running out. Took like stopped and looked at us and took off running. We're just standing there and like, what the hell? Did we just see what we saw? I hit Daniel and said, "You okay?" And he looked at me and said, "Yeah." So why'd you hit me? He said, "I want to make sure that you're awake," and I'm
Oh,
awake.
oh man.
And another time, Daniel said him and another guy, they're up at the same spot, and they said they seen it again too. I mean, it's just not just that, but I know as a kid I seen the half man, half horse, or what I learned later on in Greek mythology was the centaur.
Mm.
Uh, we're over at one of my grandma's house. You know how it's growing the res, even though like they're the sister of your grandma, so they're still considered your grandma. So we're over at her house with some of my other cousins, and we're sleeping outside in the summertime. And I remember hearing a horse walking into where we were sleeping at, and I was thinking, man, somebody's horse kick got loose, and now it's coming over here because I'm going to hear it all night making noises. But it went straight to the house, and I heard heard it just hitting the door with this, just making that. I was thinking, damn, that horse is trying to get into my grandma's house. So I rolled over, and right when I was on pop up, and it was a full moon, and I seen a figure of a horse, but then I seen the top part of like a man's body. I was thinking, man, is that guy just hanging on to the horse's head? And I kept on looking and looking. Then I heard my grandma yelling from inside the house, telling it to go away. And I remember hearing a laugh, and it turned and started running, but I didn't see the head of the horse. I just seen the body of a man from the waist up, and the horse just took off running. I didn't see the
Ma-
legs like a human legs hanging up from the side neither.
Man, it's crazy because I was talking to a few people about centaurs. I guess that's
Yeah,
what they're called, the half man, half
yeah,
horses. Up in Canada, they talk about um, basically there's like different kinds of them. There's a kind that's real pretty, like real beautiful, and you're like, man, that's a beautiful person, and all of a sudden they
yeah,
turn like a monster kind
yeah.
of thing. And then then there's another kind that's like ugly, just ugly, just nasty looking, and then there's one that's like, I think I have to refresh. You've heard something, a third one, but there was one that was like it looks like a human, and it like but it kind of transformed into something different than like it's like a centaur. I have to go back and look at my messages on that, but I know for a fact there's definitely two different kinds, or one that's beautiful and it's
Yeah.
but it like basically kind of lures you, into like its grasp or whatever. And
Oh,
they
okay.
say that there's herds up there in Canada. There's like herds of them, like they all kind of be messing around out there in the middle. Because I mean, it's so stinking vast out there. You know, there's like nothing out there for hundreds and hundreds
Yeah,
of miles.
yeah. I have a friend up there that's a that Cree, Northern Cree, and they said that they call them the horse people, but I was told that they call them the horse people,
Mm.
and that's that sparked my interest. I want to go up there just to see how theirs, if theirs are any different from what I've seen down here in Arizona. Uh, I remember, I know another time we had a train conductor. Uh, he actually stopped in a town of Peridot, uh, and he called our dispatch and wanted to file a report. So I made contact with the train conductor, and he said that, hey, do you guys have like horse people? And I was wondering what he was talking about. Between the town of Bylis and Peridot is probably a good 25 miles, and the rail tracks goes into the like way out there in the real remote area. Uh, he said that something was hitting the caboose, or not the caboose, but the engine compartment where they
Hmm.
all sit at, and said it was hitting it hard. And he had one of the other conductors go outside and check, and he said that there was rocks being thrown, and said these were some big rocks that were being thrown at them. And so when he looked off to where the rocks were coming from, so it was a whole herd of horsemen that were throwing rocks to their engine.
Man.
But uh, I know the area where he's talking about, and it's way out there. I keep on telling my cousin we should take a walk out there. Just pack some food and some water, and let's go walk out there. Maybe spend the night in the middle of nowhere. He just looked at me and said, "Do you want to die?"
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. You asking for something there, man. Jeez. And so you mentioned, like I said, and you know, when I was promoing this episode, you know, you mentioned before on your TikTok that you're a former police officer.
Yeah.
During your time, did you have any? I guess you probably did, but could you tell us some stories about that time when you were a police officer dealing with the crazy stuff you're dealing out there?
Oh man, I know uh, that there was a time that I got called to an old lady's house, and dispatchers just told me that she wanted to talk to an officer and have something removed. And I thought it was a rattlesnake or something that had gone into her house. So that was going through my head. So how am I gonna catch this snake? So I got to the house, and she lived in the very outskirts of the town of San Carlos here on the reservation. I walk up to the door, identify myself, and she opens the door, but opens it like a little bit. Then I asked her if everything okay. My thought, maybe somebody's inside, maybe it's a burglar in there. And she said, "I need you to chase it away." And I was like, "Is there somebody inside the house? Are you okay?" And then she says, "It's up on top." And I said, "Is it inside the house in the ceiling or in the attic?" She says, "No, it's on the roof." And I said, "What's on the roof?" She said, "The gargoyle." I looked at her and said, "The what?" She said, "The gargoyle. It's up there. Can you chase it off for me?" I was like, "I don't know what to do, but I can try." She said, "There's a ladder on the side of the house. You can lean it up and go chase it off." And I was like, "Okay." So I went on the side of the house where she pointed to, and I found the ladder, and I leaned up against the house. And first thing popped on my head was, man, there's gonna be some kid that's gonna pop up with the mask, and I'm gonna have to maybe hurt him. I don't want to do that. So I started, as I was climbing up the ladder, I started announcing myself, "Hey, St. Carlos police officer. I'm coming up." Said, "Don't scare me." So "You're not gonna like it if I do. If you scare me." I get close to the edge, and I was thinking, man, what if something else really pops out? But as soon as I popped my head up real quick, I saw a figure flying off, and that lady did have like a telephone pole with a light a street light mounted onto it, and I remember seeing something with a big wingspan, bigger than how I can spread my arms out, and it was kind of like a tannish gray color, and that's all I saw flying off, and there was no feathers. I could tell the difference between something that has feathers and something that didn't, and this thing didn't have no feathers.
Man.
Uh, yeah, and that wasn't the first time I've seen that. There was another time we had a missing person, and we have a lake here called St. Carlos Lake, and the person went missing on the south side of the lake. So we're up and down the road, and this was after midnight. So from where we found where the vehicle was, I started searching east along the roadway, checking all the ditches and all the embankments where someone could maybe um, bunker down and just maybe stay there until whenever they decide to walk again. So I started continuing my way east, and we have a dam called Coolidge Dam, and I got close to the dam and I started walking toward it, and the side I was on is a straight drop off, probably a good 20-25 feet. When I got close to it, ambulance was coming up behind me, and they turned on all their deck lights, and right then something big and gray just flew up right in front of me, and it also had a big wingspan, and I remember it just going straight up, and the EMT that was sitting on the passenger side jumped out of the ambulance and started yelling at me, "Hey, did you see that? Did you see that?" I said, "Hell yeah, I seen it." It flew up right in front of me. He said, "That thing was bigger than you, man." I said, "It was big." I said, "Heck yeah, it was big."
I've heard different people try to describe, what these gargoyles, I guess, kind of what we can think about how to describe them. Do you think they might be like a demon or something, or do you think that it's like a supernatural, maybe like shapeshifter type thing, or what do you think that could have been, or is it just a gargoyle?
I think it might be a creature like how they say Bigfoot is. Uh, my great grandma used to tell me there's a mountain nearby, and it's called Mount Turnbull. And she always used to say that at the bottom of Mount Turnbull, there's a portal or a doorway that these creatures are able to go from their world to ours, and they're the only ones that can pass through it. So I think I believe that it's possibility that they are making their way to our side, and when they want to, they go back to their wherever they're from.
No, that's interesting for sure. Because like I've heard one other story about gargoyles, and this was kind of like Western Oklahoma, I believe, and or yeah, Western Oklahoma, I guess. But basically said, oh no, this is out in Pawnee, Red Rock, out in Pawnee country.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they were talking. She was talking about seeing it, and it was about 3 or 4 foot tall, but it had those wings. You could tell when it's kind of went to move, it had those wings. But yeah, I was wondering that too. I'm like, man, I was like, I just don't know. I don't even. That's something that I don't even know how to like classify. If it, we got Bigfoot, we got little people, we got all these different beings.
yeah.
Um, uh, I guess while you're on, I guess while since we're on the kind of the topic of your time as a police officer, what other kind of things were you seeing out there while you were on call?
uh, Shoot. Uh, so one night we were chasing a suspect because he got in that real bad fight and beat up another individual, and so we started chasing him from this house down towards the St. Carlos River. And while we're running after him, uh, we lost him in the thicket because we have a bunch of salt cedar trees. So, but we could hear him moving through it. And there was another officer that was between us and him, and he was already going through it. So, and he was a smaller guy. And, uh, I'm like the other guys I was running with were like 6 foot and over 250 pounds. This guy was probably about maybe 5'5", maybe 180. So he was squeezing through the trees like nothing, and we were having a hard time making our way through. And I remember hearing like a loud yell, but I know it wasn't a person. And then later on, we heard something running back toward us, and we thought that maybe that guy had captured the suspect. And we're calling the radio, calling this call sign, hey, you code 4, everything good? Say, are you coming back in our direction? Nothing, but we had kept on hearing it running back toward us. Then finally, we seen that officer. He just ran right by us, and there was three of us, three officers that were standing there, and he ran by, didn't say one word, kept on running. And then we heard something else running toward us, and we stood there and waited. Then it was that suspect. He just came, seen us, started telling us, "Hey, throw me in jail, throw me in jail. Something's chasing me." He turned around, put his hands behind his back, and we cuffed him up. And next thing you know, this big old log just got tossed at us like it was nothing. And it hit the ground in front of us, and we looked down at it. We shone a light, and we could see eyes glowing off in the distance. And it yelled again. I said, "Oh shit!" Then the suspect was. The suspect started, "Come on, let's go, just let's go." So I said, we asked him, "What's that?" I said, "It's the hairy man. It's the hairy man." So we just took off. We got out there, and that uh, from those trees, you could see the eye level of that thing was like way up there. Right? I was thinking, man, that can't be no cow or no bear or nothing. I've never seen a black bear or a brown bear stand up that high, where the eyes are that high off the ground.
What color was the eye
And
shine that you saw?
it was red.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I've heard people always want to say, "Oh, it's this color, it's that color." I've heard every color. Like it's
Yeah,
I've even heard people say green, kind of greenish yellow type of a look. Um, you know, what do you think? Just especially with the knowledge that you have and the stories that you've had. Just talking specifically about Bigfoot or the hairy man.
yeah.
Um, what do you think he is?
I think it's probably just another creature like anything else. You know, like my great grandma said, that it's just another being that comes from his world to ours and uses that gateway. Uh, my my other grandma, like I told you about, Calva. I used to go out and check on her when I was a police officer in the middle of the night because I used to work. I used to love working night shift like I do right now. And one night, I went to go check on her, and something threw rocks to me. And it wasn't just like like little pebbles. It was like actual like bigger than the grapefruit. And I turned around and looked where it was coming from, and I told it, said, "This is my grandma. So I'm here to check on her. I know you take care of her, but I'm here to check on her too, make sure she's okay." And I heard something hit the ground because it was on the other side of some mesquite trees, and I heard it walking off because branches were breaking, and you could hear it just walking. So, and I was also told my great grandma or my grandma, she used to say that they speak Apache, but they speak the old Apache. And I was
I've
talking to
heard.
one
Oh, I'm sorry.
of,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You must have cut out. Go ahead.
oh, um, I have a friend that keeps on inviting me. He's from Navajo country, and he's been asking me to come join him out there for some Bigfoot hunts, just to see if we could capture anything on video. And he heard about me the same way you did, and uh, he told me the same thing. He said that he heard them talk, and they speak in old Navajo, like before it, got our language got diluted, and we started throwing more slang into it. So a lot of these creatures, they speak the old ways.
Man, that lines up exactly what I've heard down here, because I'm Cherokee Muskogee Creek. I got family I got Cherokee on both sides, and then my mom, dad, and then Creek on my dad's side. And I spent a lot of time with my Creek family growing up, and and learned a lot. Going to different cultural things with the Cherokee. But Cherokees, we always say, they kind of are like a secret tribe type of, like they're the hidden tribe, I guess is really what the translation. I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but but they have the ability to not like translate, but kind of uh, they know. It's like they know,
Yeah,
what's being said to them. Um, I've had people tell me that this is out in northeast Oklahoma, and sometimes out in Choctaw country too. They say that they would talk to them in Cherokee or Choctaw, and they say basically just kind of say, hey, we're not here to disrespect you, this and this, and they just kind of calm down or they go away. It's
yeah,
just that's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah. That's what I've been told. Not just from my grandma, but my great grandma uh, would tell me that too.
What do you think like I said, while they're over here on this side, of that door, on our side of the door, I've always heard that they kind of stay underground in caves, or places. I've heard this one story a long time ago, but they kind of, it's like there's like underwater aquifers that have like little, kind of like little door, like passageways that lead up to the surface in some form or fashion. And I've heard that they stay down there sometimes, and that's kind of where they rest. Or I know long time ago there was a documentary. I just shared that on TikTok, actually, that old Tim Harjo clip, and with that Seminole elder talking about that he thinks they coming from underground. Do you guys kind of believe that same thing out that way, or do you think they just kind of hang out?
Yeah, that mountain I mentioned, Mount Turnbull, uh, the gateway my grandma talks about. She says it's a cave, and I've been to that mountain a bunch of times, and only one time I found that cave, but I haven't found it since. But when I approached that cave, I just had an eerie feeling like something was watching me, and something else was telling me, "Hey, don't go in there. You might not come back." And it 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 was something that, because you could see on the ground how it was pretty much level, and it wasn't really too disturbed, but looked like something was really walking back and forth, and it wasn't small impressions, but it was like really flattening down the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a
It was
pretty
like
good sized cave too.
it was like a trail almost, like kind of
Yeah,
like you could tell someone's been
yeah,
walking through there.
yeah. I had
Yeah,
a
that's
cousin of mine tell me that
no.
he seen that cave too.
I wonder sometimes too, when when you go and you go to these different places, and um, I've heard some different things where people have went to different places, especially here in Oklahoma, and they go and investigate, or or whatever, just go Bigfoot hunting or whatever, and all of a sudden
Yeah,
they go to a place and they can't find it again.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if that's because I've been told sometimes little people do that. They make you kind of get kind of not lost, but they just get you kind of turned around.
Like they moved the scenery around.
Yeah, yeah. I had a speaking of that door you're talking about. Yeah, you said that, man. I was like, all right, yeah, we're gonna get into this, but I was told from my aunt. She was telling me that how people basically that little people they can almost like when you fold a piece of paper, like if you folded it 3 or 4 different ways, and it's a little piece, and then you stick a pencil through it, and then
Yeah,
you pull the pencil through, and then you're on the other side.
yeah.
That she said that's what they can do. They can kind of scrunch up terrain or move things around and get you kind of like and there was a theory. I was at a live show in Pawnee, and someone had brought up missing 411 about that. I don't know if you heard of missing 411.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the documentaries. It sparked my interest.
Yeah, and yeah, me definitely me too. Like I'm very curious of like how these people are going missing, and like like this little kid was 20 miles away from where he went quote unquote missing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but those stories. I have relatives that had those stories where they'd see a little person, a little and they'd be out there, and next thing they know they're like 10 miles off, or like they'll get led down a certain way. Those
yeah,
stories have been around forever, so it's like when I hear non-natives being like, "What? I don't know how they got 20 miles." I think it goes back down to that. I mean, that's just kind of what my opinion of it is.
yeah. Shoot, I remember when I barely moved back from, or we used to go visit my grandma and stay with her out in Calva. Uh, I remember I got up because she's an early riser, and she goes outside to feed her dogs and feed her chickens. And so I got up when I heard her moving around and getting stuff. So I was like, okay, I better get up too and start doing something and see what she needs done around her house. As soon as I walked out the room I was staying in, I heard her yelling, "Hey, leave that alone!" But she was yelling Apache. Like, go on, Zant, what's that? I was thinking, man, I rushed and I put my shoes on real quick, and I started rushing out there thinking a dog or a coyote was bothering her chickens. As soon as I walk outside and I seen, you know, two 2 foot tall little people at her chicken coop. One was standing there holding 2 eggs like this. It was standing outside of the chicken coop, and another one inside was holding an egg, and he just had that look like, like, oh crap, we got caught. I was standing there. I was like, what the hell? Am I really seeing this? I took off my glasses, cleaned it real quick, like how they do in the movies, and I put
Mm-hmm.
it back on. And I just stood there in disbelief. And my grandma said, they're always coming over here taking my eggs. I said, man, this happened more than once. So the
Man,
one with the two eggs just took off running towards the river, and the one that was inside just jumped on the fence, started climbing up, and as soon as it got to the top of the chicken coop, it jumped off.
mm-hmm.
And that was probably like a good 7 foot tall uh, fence, or and it hit the ground and just took off right next to it, and it just disappeared. And there
Man,
was no brush or nothing. It was all flat. I could watch them run down towards the river, but as soon as they started running, they just like poof, gone.
man, that's interesting. Cause yeah, cause like you hear that story. Like I was talking to uh, Rod from Lodge Tales. If you
Yeah,
go, I don't know if you know who that is, but
yeah. I
he's
did an
on Tik.
episode with them a while back
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm. Hey, we're all coming together, man. I love it.
Yeah,
We're all finding each other somehow. You know what I'm saying? But but I think he was telling me that the way it was kind of dressed, he kind of looked like an old school Indian, kind of, like
yeah,
old. I'm talking about like 1800s, and I've heard
yeah,
people describe them as kind of tattered, like the kind of ones that really, mischievous ones. They really kind of look ragged. I don't know if you heard anything like that.
Yeah, this one it had like a loincloth. But just a loincloth tied around, around his around his waist area, and long hair, dark skin and black hair, and I couldn't see his face too good, but I could see where their eyes, their mouth, and I heard them talking to each other, but I couldn't understand what they were saying, and that was just that was something else, and I want to do an episode because I like to venture off into the mountains from where my grandma's house is at, or just anywhere. And I think I found maybe one of their burial sites
Mm.
because, but I don't want to. I'm trying to. Once I go out there, I don't want to give away the location because I don't want nobody bothering it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is like maybe a bunch of uh, probably about burials, but maybe about that wide, that long, and about that wide, and black rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Not big rocks, but just little pebbles stacked up on each other, and probably about that high off the ground. And it's not just one, but there's at least 20 of them. And I just came across it because, like I said, I like to venture off. And I came in this area, I looked down, and one of the things that in our culture that we do is, and once we find something like that, is we leave water because, like everybody says, water is life. And even even in death, water will still uh, travel with you. So I took a container out of my backpack and filled it up with some water, and I left it there just as because I felt at the same time I felt something was watching me, like somebody was around. So when I was leaving the water, I started telling it, hey, I didn't come in a bad way. I came in a good way. I'm gonna leave in a good way. So this is what I'm giving to you. Just let me go back to where I'm coming, uh, where I came from, and don't bother me. So, and that's what I did. I left the water for them, and but I want to go back just to see where they were. And I found a lot of interesting stuff that, like a uh, little outline of maybe that looked like a little structure, but it was marked. It's marked off with some black rocks that were probably about this big, and I've never seen rocks like this before.
Hmm.
And that's something that really sparked my interest too.
Yeah, and that's interesting. When you talk about that, kind of that area. I posted a picture on my TikTok. I think it might have been a couple years ago actually. But my parents' house sits kind of over a river, and then obviously it's like kind of on a hill, and you go down and you hit the river. Um, and I think I can't remember how they found this, but it was out in the pasture, kind of out in the corner, and it was a perfect circle. It was like
Yeah.
a perfect circle of I can't think of the name. It wasn't honeysuckle. It might have been honeysuckle, but it was literally the grass was mowed, and you could see where there was a little circle where maybe somebody was either walking, like you could see the grass was growing up, but
Yeah.
like it looked like a perfect little circle of somebody. It looked like they were maybe dancing around
Oh, Lord.
something.
Yeah.
I may have to send you that picture because I see if I even still have it, or maybe send you the TikTok. But it looked perfect. I went out there and my dad and I were talking about it. He's like, "We just ain't gonna mess with it. We just gonna mow. We gonna mow around it. I guess."
Yeah.
That was probably last year, but that the little people, man. They one thing that I always get a lot of questions about. People message me or comment, and they'll say, I had somebody was like, "When are you gonna do a LP episode?" I'm like, "Man, soon." But I like when other people talk about it. But one thing that I get a lot of, from different people from different races and nationalities and cultures is it. Some of the stuff sounds the same, but it sounds like our LP or little people.
Yeah.
They're different than like the European, because people out in Europe they call them the Fae, or like in Scotland they call them the Fae.
Yeah. Or the
Different
gnomes.
places, or gnomes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always hear it's different,
Yeah. I've been told that too when I told that story about my encounter at my grandma's house with the those two little ones that were stealing her eggs. A couple of people saying, "Hey, those are gnomes," or they even said fae or fairies or I forgot what else names,
the
but some other
Duendes.
people. Yeah,
Hispanics call them Duendes, I think.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Hispanic guy or a lady mentioned that, and I know other couple of tribes they use their names for them too. I was like, man, it's not just here. There's a lot of other people that do see these.
Hmm. And that's one thing that kind of makes me wonder, because when I hear the Fae, like especially in old Scotland days, like
Yeah,
old times, they talk about how they could almost kind of reverse time, and they could stop time, and they could and kind of going back to missing 411 about them, that I find very interesting, and I'm kind of curious on what you kind of think about that, but or about this, but is that like they kind of almost they stop time, and that could be why those people are
right.
they go missing in a certain, like they'll go missing on a Tuesday, and they still think it's Tuesday, but for
Yeah,
us it's like next
like
Friday. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? What's your kind of thoughts on that?
That I think that they probably did go into like a time lapse or time portal where time just stood still for them, or who knows? It could be like maybe gone through hypnosis, and in their mind they're somewhere else, and it's still continuously the same day, but yet somehow they when they wake up or come out of it, it's a different time, but they still think it's the back then,
Hmm.
and yet their body still hasn't changed, or they don't feel hungry or don't feel dehydrated, and they're still well nourished. But that's something interesting. Uh, like I think I watched that same episode when you were talking about with that little boy where he went missing for a while,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
man. Yeah.
that one really like made me wonder, so, man, you know that what if that ever happened to me? Brian brings up a lot of these what ifs.
Yeah.
Were that happen to my kid, and how would I react? How would I feel?
And I've had people reaching out about that. Like I had a gentleman reach out to me. I can't remember where he was from, but he was real worried. He was like really up, like I could tell he was not. He was not like he was like manic, or he was panicking, but you could tell he was genuinely worried about. I was telling a story,
Yeah,
about how they do take kids sometimes, and
yeah,
they lead them off, and um, different things. And I've heard stories of kids going missing, and like there was a story that growing up my grandpa would tell about a little boy that went missing, and he came back and he wasn't right. Like he just didn't. He wasn't the same. He wasn't the same person.
yeah.
And this guy, he was like, I had told that story, and he was like, "Man, I think I got him in my house." And I was asking him, why do you think that? He said, "Well," he said, "we go fishing, and every time we go fishing, he's like, there's, it's almost like they uh, kind of lure him out there to be longer," is what he said, kind of
Yeah,
like they wanted him to be, there. And he said, "Well, I'm there, nothing really happens." He said, "But my kids are always around that pond." And he's like, how do I keep them from, the kids missing time, or
Yeah.
things like that. And I just told him, I said, you just got to leave them alone. I said, you got to, let them know, hey, I come with respect. You just have to talk to them. And he was like, that's it. I said, yeah. I said, I mean, you start offering them stuff, that
Yeah.
could open up a different window into
That's what I
something
was
that,
gonna mention too. Is maybe offer them something. Leave a piece of bread or some. Somebody mentioned that leave candy for them because they like they like sweet stuff.
mm,
Uh, or like what I did, I left water because everybody can agree water is life, no matter who or what you are. That's something we can't really live without is water.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he
when
was
I
real
used,
worried. He was real worried. And I
yeah,
was like, well, I said, man, just, that's kind of one of the avenues I gave him. And he was like, well, he's like, okay, well, I appreciate that. And I hadn't heard luckily, nothing's happened. I ain't heard back from him. So,
yeah, that's
hopefully he's
good.
doing all right if he's listening to the podcast. But, real quick before we get lost, we're an hour in here. I want to go through the chat and, if
Okay.
if you guys have a question or a topic that you'd like, Mr. Barry to talk about, please put it in the chat. We have Matt Acosta here. My wife is here. She's listening. Dang, just in the other room. No. Becca Joe, thank you for showing up. Hawk John, he's tuning in from Louisiana.
Oh,
Man, I got everybody in different
yeah.
places, man. Dang. Let's see here. Another comment that was made from Hawk John was that his people out in Louisiana pray at the east at sunrise, and they sing a song towards the east, prayer
Okay.
song. He also says depends on who you talk to, how old they are is a factor. Some say owls bring a message of death. Older ones will say they are tricksters or shapeshifters. Just depends on what you believe. Yeah, we will. I guess we can go get into shapeshifters here in a minute if Barry don't mind. I know
No.
that's something I get a bunch about too. Let's see here. Dang, Matt Costa said I had a painting on my wall that fell for no reason. It happens like that on this. When you start
It
listening
does.
live like this.
It does.
Kidra, how's it going? I'm glad you can finally join the live. She believes that they're Bigfoot are interdimensional beings because they leave no carcass or parts. And when they're harmed, I guess they don't leave any of that stuff. You can never find a body, basically.
Yeah. Another thing I was told about that too is that I had some old cowboys told me that they found a young one and they tried to rope it, and every time they threw their lasso, the rope would go through its body, like no no material of this world can capture them. They said they chased it for quite a while and said and that thing was running faster than their horses.
Mm.
They said it was probably about maybe 5 foot. And so it looked scared, just kept on running, and it was a reddish, like a reddish brown hair that would cover his body. It was running on two legs.
Man. Yeah. I mean, that another avenue I guess we could get into while we have Kendra's comment up here, or
Yeah.
since we're on the topic.
Well, I
I
got
believe,
I got
yeah,
some on shape shifting too.
yeah, man. With Bigfoot, I think they know medicine, man. I really
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
think that they do.
Oh yeah. Um, Shoot, there was another incident where my grandma found a guy passed out underneath her carport, and when she woke him up, she started yelling at him and said, "What are you doing in my house? How'd you get here?" And there's this place down the road from where she lived at. Uh, Everybody calls the big trees. It's a bunch of evergreen trees, and it's just the middle of the desert area. And that's the party spot. Everybody goes to the party, and some people would do their ceremonies there, but for the most part, a lot of people go to the party because it's way out, and cops don't really like going in that area. Well, except for me because I grew up there. But she said that when she woke him up, he said that he was drinking the night before with some friends, and he got left behind, and he didn't want to walk back to the town of Bilas because that's still like another 6 miles away, and it was still uh, dead of night, and he was ready, ready brewed out pretty good, and he didn't want to walk that far. And so he found a place where he could bed down for the night. So he went there and started to go to sleep when he felt something tugging on him. And he woke up and he said, from what he could see, is a silhouette. So it was a tall, tall person. And it was talking to him in Apache, old Apache. So he had to try and really translate his words. And it was telling him, hey, you can't sleep here. It said, there's bad things that come out in the nighttime. Come on, I'm going to take you to the old lady's house. And it helped them get up, and they made their way onto the road. And said when they were walking down the road towards my grandma's house, the guy kept on bumping into it. And he told my grandma, said, man, that thing had his arms were hairy. I just felt a bunch of hair on his arm. And it kept on talking to me. He said, that old lady just lives up here. And he was talking in Apache. And when we got to your gate, so he just reached over, opened, undid the latch. And I walked in, and he closed it and latched up the gate and told me to go sleep with her. And like, tip where you? And then hush. Yes, how we say go to sleep over there in Apache. And so he went over there, and that's where he fell asleep. And that's where my grandma found him.
Man, yeah, man, it's definitely interesting. I think that they possess, like I said, knowledge that maybe we lost.
Yeah,
I've said this on my podcast, I guess ad nauseum at this point. I guess everybody that's been listening for 2 years now, they're like, man, he's been saying that forever. But there's something about them that they know that old way, and my theory about it is I think a lot like us,
yeah,
us natives now is, I don't know medicine, but I know people who know those things. There's always someone that's designated for that because you got to be right for it.
yeah,
And I think it's the same way with them. People say, "Oh, well, they disappeared out of nowhere." I've been told growing up that there's people that do that can do those things. They can just
yeah,
say, if you're not looking for me, I'm not there.
yeah.
Type thing. And that's one thing that I always kind of laugh. When people start talking about medicine, they think it's like magic. It's not really like that. It's an energy thing. And Rod and I talked about this. When I did an episode with him, is like obviously it is maybe some herbal things that's been done. But there's always its intent and energies that are involved in this thing.
Yeah.
But kind of what you think about that?
I totally agree with you. It's not voodoo or uh,
Blood
not
magic or
yeah, not nothing like how you see these magicians or illusionists. What they do, it's something that from my grandma, from my great grandma used to say. It's something that it took them a long time to know and how to use it. There's ways that they can use it to in a bad way to do things that they're not supposed to do, and there's also good ways how they can heal and uh, make certain things. But how people say don't use it to pray for money, don't use it to pray for fame or anything like that. That's not the right way. um, like one of the well-known Apaches that everybody knows, Geronimo, he used it a lot, but he used it to help his people, use it to benefit them. And I think that's how he became like one of the most fierce and not really a chief, but someone that was spiritually a spiritual person for the tribe. because his role was more of a spiritual person, a shaman. Uh, Even my great grandma used to say that he was a shapeshifter. Whenever the U.S. cavalry would think that they're going to catch him, he would turn himself into an eagle or a coyote and make his way. That's how he'll get away from being captured. And sometimes he will be captured just for amusement, just so that way he can show the soldiers that you can't really capture me. You think you caught me, but you never caught me. She told me a story of one time that because my great great grandfather was rode with him, and Geronimo told him, "Come on, let's go get captured." And yeah, so they got captured, and when they were sitting inside that wooden jail, he said Geronimo turned them into both coyotes, and they dug their way out and got away. And so after that, so he turned and said, "How'd you do that?" Said that's what I do. Said, but sometimes I use it just for my amusement, just to make those soldiers think that you think you caught me, but you can't catch me. you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
No, yeah, it definitely. Like I said, that 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 old. Like I always say, old ways, but but that medicine is different, and it's my grandpa always used to laugh. I've told this story before. He passed away in 2021, and but I think he knew that I was going to be a storyteller and someone who can collect knowledge. I think that he saw that for me, and he'd always tell me all these stories, and he'd always say, he said, if you don't want to be found, he's like, you just be, you just hang back. He's like, they ain't gonna look for you.
yeah.
If they really want looking for you, they'll find you. But all you gotta do is just kind of hang back, and they'll find you. And so I've
Yeah.
always kind of, a lot of times in my professional career, I've worked in government, nonprofits, things like that, and so like I have to be real, loud a lot of times in terms of like my personality, try to get things across. But there's been times where I've stepped back and they're like, "Dang, I didn't even know you was in the room." It's like, he always used to tell us that, you just
Yeah.
kind of just hang back if they really want, if they really, that's how if
When they need you,
you,
they'll see you. If they don't, then you're just
yeah,
be there, right?
yeah, I'm there and I heard everything you said, and I
Yeah.
don't forget. It's like, um, but going back to the chat here, I know we got some comments kind of rolling in. Um, Hey Joe, how's it going? Miss Lisa, nice for you to join us. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Miss Christina says, awesome, found it. Nice for you to join us. Oh dang man, look at this one right here. Two of my favorite storytellers coming up on the live tonight.
Hey, how you
Sheena,
doing?
appreciate that. Uh, Miss Kendra says I talked to an Irish guy once, and he was talking about the Fae, goblins. I guess brownies is another name that they call them over there.
Yeah.
Not nice beings, but some of them are all right, I guess.
Yeah.
Christina is from Laguna Pueblo.
Oh, New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico.
Yeah.
I knew. I was like,
Just
it sounds like it's out southwest.
yeah, it's out just east of Gallup. Not just east, but a couple miles between Gallup and Santa Fe.
Hmm.
The city in the sky.
The city in the sky. There we go. Mr. Jared Davis from, I guess he's out in Locust Grove, I think now, or he was Salina, out in that area, northeast Oklahoma. Um, he says, Yohola, you remember the story I told you about the sickly dog in the woods and throwing rocks at it, and the visitors trying to shoo it away when returning? Yeah, I remember that. I just can't remember the full story. Um, and then Squatch and Holler, what's going on with you, man? I ain't heard from you in a while. I'm glad that you're still around. He also says, Yehola, my son and I had a very large huff/growl that at us at dusk Sunday or Saturday evening. We stopped and I just said, "Hey, we didn't hear, we didn't hear anything else." That's very interesting. But I'm glad that everybody's joining us. If you guys could in the chat, if you got anything for Mr. Barry here, in terms of topics, put it in the chat and we'll get rolling. But I know there's going to be some people that are listening back to this and they're like, okay, let's get the shapeshifters, because that's something that I
Yeah,
get a lot on this. I'm sure you probably do too. That's a big thing. People with the popularity of the skinwalker. Now, I want
yeah,
to preface, for everyone who's non-native that's listening, or native that doesn't really understand, a skinwalker is a human. It's not a cryptid. It's not a um, what I what do we want to say? No, it's not like a beast. It's a it's someone who can change into these things. And I see a lot of times, not trying to hate on non-natives for talking about native things,
yeah,
but they do that a lot.
yeah. I've seen a
Um,
couple of videos like that too. It's like that's not Skinwalker. That's something else.
yeah, you're seeing something different. And really big podcaster did a Halloween special on Native American entities, and I could just tell he went to Wikipedia and just read exactly off Wikipedia. And that um, I don't really like it. A lot of times I really don't like talking about shapeshifters because I've heard even here in the city. I'm in the Tulsa area. I've heard stories. Um, I've heard stories about these things showing up, in people's houses. Here in the Tulsa area. People have told me those stories.
Yeah,
Somebody showing up like that. But getting to that topic, because we're gonna touch on it, because if it it's coming from Native people. People that
yeah.
have seen it, or seen someone do this or whatever. But do you have anything, or any theories, or any stories, relating to that, to shapeshifters or skinwalkers? I guess depending on what tribe you're on, they could be
Well,
called that. Whatever.
from here we call them shapeshifters here in Apache land,
That's what we
in
call them
St.
over here.
Carlos. And but I've seen skinwalkers. Uh, I went with one of my buddies when I was in college. We went up to his hometown, Ganado, on the Navajo reservation. So one night he tells me and another friend that's from here, on Apache, and he asked us, "Hey, you guys want to go out and want to go hang out?" It's like, "Yeah, okay." He said, "This is your place. You're just showing us around." So, you know, he borrowed his mom's car and he took us out into the boonies. And I was thinking, "Damn, man, something don't feel right." I asked him, kept on asking him, "So where are we going? Where are we going?" He said, "Don't worry about it, man. Just kick back." So we're almost there. And I said, "Shit, where are we going then?" Finally, we get to this real isolated area. You could see grass that's probably about as tall as your knees, and every other spot is juniper trees. Not big old cluster, but juniper tree here and there. And what's one thing that we're taught as native people not to do at night, not to whistle, right?
Yep.
And he tells us, "Hey, start whistling." I said, "Hell no, son, I'm not gonna whistle." He said, "Come on, let's do it." And I was like, all right. So we started whistling, and sure enough, off the distance, probably a good maybe 100 yards away, I could see a juniper tree, and I seen something step out from behind it, and you could see it making its way toward us. As it's getting closer, there's another juniper tree on this side, and you see another figure step up from behind it, and both of us started walking toward us. And my buddy, the Navajo guy, said, "I'm gonna go in the car and wait for you guys." And I was like, "Shit, man." And the other guy that I was with, he was on crutches because he broke his ball joint on his ankle. So I told him, "Hurry up and head back to the car. I'll stand and make sure nothing comes up," because they're coming up quick, like they were running at us. And so as my buddy was going to the car with his crutches, I was looking at him. I kept on looking back, kept my eyes on those two uh, things coming at us, and they probably got within 4 to 3 feet from me. And I was looking at them, and they had their fur on. Their faces were painted black, and they had a loincloth. And one of them asked me in Navajo, said, "You're not scared?" And I said, "Why should I be scared?" And he looks at me and said, "You're not Navajo." And I told him, said, "No, so I'm Apache." And they both looked at each other, and they looked at me, and they took a step back. And I said, "Oh, you guys are scared of me, huh?" And I said, "You guys think my my power is stronger than yours?" They just looked at me, and took a step forward. I reached over, I grabbed his, because he had a medicine pouch tied to his waist. I grabbed that and I pulled it off. And I told him, "Your power is my power now." And he just looked at the other one, and they just looked at each other, and I said, "It's mine now." So I started walking back, and my buddy was finally at the car, and he gets in and he yells, "Come on, let's go." So I get to the car, I get in, and the guy just takes off down the road, and he's probably going like 30, 35 miles an hour. And we kept on hearing this on the back of the car. I turned around, and those two are running after the car, hitting the back of it. And the driver was telling us, so, "Man, they're chasing us. They're chasing us. They're going to make us crash. They're going to make us crash." And I was thinking, I looked at my hand and said, "This is probably what they want." I said, "Here, I'm going to throw this out the window." I rolled the window out, and I chucked that pouch out the window, and they stopped. They stopped, and my buddy said, "What you throw out?" And I said, "I took his medicine pouch." "You did what?" And so we get back to his mom's house, which was quite a ways away. And so we're there, and he told us, "No, don't tell my mom what we did." And I said, "I can't say nothing." So later on that night, the mom asked, "Hey, can one of you guys get some wood so I can put in the stove?" I said, "Yeah." So I went out back, and when I was back there, I seen those two same people standing at that lady's fence line. Standing there, I grabbed one of the logs, and I said, "Man," I said, "you guys better leave this family alone. So I know you're here for me, so you leave them alone. You want me, come and get me right now." And they just stood there. I grabbed some wood and walked into the house. I made sure that everything was locked. And I put the wood down, and I went out to get some more because I didn't want anybody to go back out in the middle of the night. And I told my buddies, "Hey, let you know, so those things followed us." He said, "What? You for real?" I said, "Yeah, they're outside standing the fence line."
Man, did you have them come back and mess with you for a while, or they just want kind of a just letting you know we're around type thing?
I think just letting us know that they were around. But I then the next day I told them, asked her mom, uh, if I'm gonna walk around the property real quick just to check out her land. She said, "Okay." What I did too was I grabbed some salt, and one thing I learned from my grandma was, walk around the house or the property with some salt and sprinkle it around to make sure nothing bad comes and bothers. So that's what I did later on the next day. As I walked around her property, I sprinkled salt around her property, hoping that they won't bother, my friend's mom and his younger siblings.
Man, that's a wicked story, man. I ain't gonna lie, I kind of got goosebumps when you said that they just stand at the fence line, man.
Yeah,
Ah,
I mean,
you know,
I
go ahead, go ahead.
that's my first time seeing them, and that just that was a a fascinating experience, but at the same time, kind of creepy,
Yeah,
especially
no,
when I
yeah,
saw
it's
them.
definitely creepy. It's as I'm sitting here, I used to, well, I had a listener one time reach out, and they were talking about a time when they were out in Walika, Oklahoma, out in Creek Country, Muskogee Creek
Yeah,
Country, and they was out in Walika, Oklahoma, and uh, she always used to say there was an old medicine guy used to kind of walk around. People used to think he was drunk, but I think he was kind of faking. He was acting like he was but he was really
yeah,
kind of just watching.
yeah.
And she said, yeah, one night they was walking home on this road, and uh, and basically they see him down like kind of on down the road, and they're looking like, oh, it's that old man again. He's probably, because he always kind of followed this girl around. For whatever reason, he was always around. Like, he one time they was down at the creek, and it was getting kind of dark, and her friend went down went under to kind of like wash her hair off because of sand or whatever, all the little
Yeah.
pebbles or whatever in her hair.
Yeah.
And she comes up, and that old man's standing right above them. She's like, oh, what is he doing here? And they took off. And so that night they was walking, and all of a sudden he literally walks into the tree line. He comes back out, and he's a dog. He said a dog walked out, and the dog kind of was like, real happy to see him. He's all, happy and whatnot. And she goes, I didn't know. She's like, I got real scared, man. She's like, that really scared me because, how did I not know that this dog, it ain't him? And because the dog kept rubbing on her and really and it followed him all the way down the road. And then, he just stopped at a certain point. They got close to the house and stopped.
Yeah.
So it's weird stuff. There's a story, I've told this a bunch of times, but I always think about it, about it. A lot of people, around here, shapeshifters, back in, you don't really hear much news stories.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of old, like grandparents telling me something, or an aunt tell me something, and the story about my aunt. She saw basically this dog kept coming up to the house, and her grandmother was like, "Hey, you need to get that dog out of here," because she knew it was a guy shapeshifted into a dog, and basically the dog smiled and he had a gold tooth. The old man had a gold tooth too.
Dang,
so I was like,
really?
man, yeah. They said they were really petting him. And that dog, how dogs kind of open their mouth and they really start, they're loving that attention. And they saw a gold tooth back there. It's like, get out of here! What are you doing here?
Yeah, that would make me question that too.
Yeah. Let's see here. I got a few questions about about your story. Miss Lisa says, what do you think they were, and why were they out there to begin with at the beginning of your story?
I'm not too familiar with how they are, but like my friend said, they're skinwalkers. They're just basically guys that were just maybe looking for someone to do their bad medicine on. I've heard a bunch of stories about them, how they would dig up grave sites and take pieces of bones from like people's bodies, and they would use that, and once they catch somebody, they will put it in that person, like underneath their skin, and basically control them or make them sick. I just had a friend of mine ask me to read a story. I was going to read it later on and after this podcast, but yeah, she mentioned that skinwalkers, people that practice that and practice it in a bad way, that they will take bones from someone that passed away and use it for bad medicine. And I think they were looking for someone to take, or someone to use their power on. And for us Apaches, we don't have them around here. Most of the ones that we dealt with are just shapeshifters, or people that pray in a bad way. But skinwalkers are mainly Navajos, what they believe in. I can't remember the name. I know I've been told it a bunch of times what they're called, but I can't remember what it is right now. I went blank on it. But it always I always heard about it growing up, and that was my first encounter. And this was maybe about 20 years ago when I encountered them.
kind of moving back to the chat here. Another topic that was mentioned, and I have a few instances with these, but it's shadow people. Or shadow beings or whatever you want to call them. Story that I don't think I've really told it very much, but when me and my wife first got together, we used to see. We'd be sitting there on the couch, or I'd be sitting in my recliner. I'm an old man like that, got an old recliner, but no.
Yeah.
But we're sitting there watching TV show, and we'd see something out of the corner of our eye go up the stairs in our
Yeah.
apartment, and we
Yeah.
both look at each other and kind of, I was thinking we got rats or something for a long time, but we'd see. I've always seen things like that, and if you haven't heard the Halloween special, go back. I tell I don't know if it's a shadow person. I don't know if it's bad medicine. I really don't know what it was. Might have been the Ouija board I played with. I don't know, but I had a really long shadow thing story. But one that I'll say here that happened over the last about a year ago, I guess you'd say, is I was having I was kind of having these. You never had these like dreams where they feel real?
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
you're like, man, that had to be real. But
Yeah.
so one night, I'm always real. I'm always real weird about my house. It has to be locked. I don't. I'm always weird about it. Like everything's got to be turned off, doors locked. It don't matter. Everything's got to be tucked away before we go to bed. It's just kind of how we operate. One night, we moved the bed around, and so I could see right directly into where I was laying in my bed, directly into where the kitchen table was. And I'm sitting there laying down, and all of a sudden I kind of looked, something moved in the corner of my eye. This is at a different house than the apartment. This is when I was living in Oklahoma City. But I looked, and I thought I saw somebody walk by from the kitchen table into like you're headed into the garage.
Yeah.
Man, I got up so dang fast. I thought somebody was a home invasion because my daughter's rooms were on the other side of the house. So I was thinking somebody was in there. Maybe I left the garage open. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Well, I got up so dang fast. I got up. I was getting ready to swing on somebody, and next thing I look around, everything was locked. But it was probably someone about 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
And I saw it, just walk by, and I get up. So I got up right after as it passed it, where I couldn't see anymore, like it was headed into the garage, like you're in the kitchen into the garage, and there's all these different types of beings out there. But have you heard anything about shadow people or shadow beings?
Shoot. Oh, I have plenty. I have a couple of stories on that. Same place where I told you we saw that gate man or that goat man. Where me and Daniel, that was like I said, our hangout spot. Back then I was driving around in a old Crown Vic, a Ford Crown Vic, and it was my patrol vehicle. And I used to get on the hood and just lean back on the windshield just to get comfortable and listen out for traffic. Well, Daniel and the other guy that I always mention on my TikTok, and we used to do a podcast. We call him Uncle Tino. This is a nickname we gave him. But the three of us were up there, and I just leaned back on my windshield. I closed my eyes for a bit, and I popped them open because I had that feeling that something was looking at me. I just seen a dark figure just hovering over me, and I popped out quick, and it popped back, and I want to say not really took off running, but it went away from me, and I popped off on my hood, and I took off after it. Even Daniel and the guy we call Uncle Tino, they saw me and they saw me chasing it. And later on, Uncle Tino asked me, he said, "Why the hell are you chasing that black thing?" So I've never seen anybody chase a black figure before. So you're the only one crazy enough to do something like that. And I chased it, and it was going towards the forestry building, but there was a chain link fence that was probably a good 12 feet tall with the serrated barbed wire on top of it, and it went straight through. And I stopped right there. When it knew I stopped, it stopped and it turned around and looked, and it's facing towards me. And then it went towards the building and blended in with the rest of the shadows. And a couple times after that, there was an old building that was at the entrance to the forestry gates, and we used to park right there too. And I would every once in a while when we're up there, and because we used to park in a triangle, and we'll stand in the middle of it, and I'll be facing towards the that building and the forestry office, and I would see that figure, peeking out from behind the building, move back and peek out again. And Daniel and Uncle Tino, they caught me looking like going, following it, going, leaning over, going back, leaning over. And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking at that thing, looking at me." So Daniel and Tino looked at the building and they saw it stick its head out and stick it back, and they said, "Stop playing around with it. You're not supposed to be playing around with it." I said, "Tell it to leave me alone then." He said, "It's just you. The only bother you." I don't know. It's just, I guess it's something that do with me.
I think you might just be open and like, they always say that they kind of feed off energy a little bit. And, I mentioned at the beginning of this, if you guys missed it live. I think it has to do something with energy, man. And something
Yeah,
has to do with either they're feeding on it or, something like that,
like the Sixth Sense, where they're just attracted to it.
Yeah. When I was living in North Tulsa, this is what, shoot, I think that's now like 8 years ago, whatever, long time ago, I guess you could say, but my dogs, only time that they would ever be in the kitchen or the living room was if the lights were on. And, I had to run into some people who knew, I guess they call it new age magic.
Yeah.
They start with the books and the
Oh
Wicca,
yeah.
whatever they call that stuff.
Yeah.
But I ran into some of those people, and I think one of them was messing with me. But so every night, once I kind of started, talking to these people, and because I'm curious, I want to know, I want to see something, it's kind of what I'm. But I started, asking questions and starting not. I wasn't a part of the group by any means. I just was curious. But I'm laying there in bed, and my dogs, man, they would always be, they would never go in. Once that light turned off in that living room and that kitchen, and we go down the hall, they go right into their crates. They would
Yeah.
not. They wouldn't be any type of way. So I knew something was off, and one night I'm sitting in this recliner right before I dang broke it. Dang, I didn't even tell off on myself, but dang, I leaned back too far, and I went back and crumpled up like a piece
Oh
of
man.
paper, man. Ah, looking, it was rugged, that recliner I had, but
But hey, it fit just right though, right?
oh man, I'd be falling asleep in that thing, man. But uh, but uh, but no. So we were, so I was sitting there, and one night I'm like literally, I can't remember. OU game might have been on. It was a Saturday. I remember that. It was kind of fall. It was kind of chilly outside. And, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear screaming. Like it sounded like a scream.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do the scream, but it sounded like almost like a woman or something but it sounded a little more high pitched than a woman scream.
Yeah.
And both my dogs looked at me. I looked at them. I was like, "What was that?" I'm sitting there just like, "What?" And they take off into their crates. They're like, "No," because that's their safe. Dogs with their crates is kind of a
Yeah.
safe place for them. But they went in there, and they didn't come out the rest of the night. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, maybe if I hear it again. So then, as it kind of got more and more weird stuff started happening. Like there'd be times where like like I kept my dog's food in this bin, and I thought I had rats for a long time. So I had an exterminator come out. He didn't find no rats. He didn't find anything. Like he set
Yeah.
out like bunch of different traps, and couldn't
Yeah.
find anything. Except for one big old rat. Like he was a monster rat. But stuff was still happening. There'd be times where I swear to you, and I kind of thought I was crazy. I hadn't really said this before, but there was a 3-pronged footprint on my
Oh.
dog's food bin.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, what is? I was like, man, I'm thinking I'm crazy. Like I'm thinking, because I hadn't really done a lot of investigating, but I was asking questions maybe from people that was trying to maybe check on me or something. But I'd see shadow things, going from room to room out of the corner of my eye. But yeah, that shadow people thing, man, is just that's creepy. It is creepy. You see, especially
Yeah.
when you wake up and you see somebody in the corner of the room, and you're like, "What is that?" And you have to kind of adjust your eyes, and you realize that it's darker than the room or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. The place we're staying at. So one night I was sleeping and I had that feeling like something was watching me, and I woke up and I saw a figure, but as soon as it seemed like maybe it sensed me uh, being awake and opened my eyes, it just disappeared behind the door. Like it went through the door, and I didn't see nothing to my girlfriend about it. I didn't mention it to her whatsoever. And then just the other night, for some reason, the topic came up, and she tells me that when I'm here at work, uh, she would get a glimpse of something standing in the hallway, like a dark figure. And she said something that really just got her on at ease.
I bet you getting spooked out there, man.
No,
You had to be.
I got someone coming up. Hold on, I'm gonna mute this real quick.
Okay. But getting back to the chat over here, guys. Barry's gonna step away real quick. Hey, if y'all see anything in his camera, let me know. He's out there getting real creepy out there. Let's see here. Kendra, what a doozy for a first meeting. Oh, talking about his story. Yeah, you ain't lying. Miss Lisa, no problem about your questions. I'm glad you're asking them. Let's see here. Is it Sheena? If I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. Walika's is down the road from me. Yeah, Walika's pretty creepy out there. It's real. It's a small town. Um, that girl who I talked to, there was another story that she talked about, but I cannot remember. I have to go back and look at my notes, but I cannot remember the exact story. Um, let's see here. Notice you noticing it. Yeah, talking about shadow people. It's weird because you see it and then they kind of just like it's like they just know. Let's see here. Kendra says I talked to our shadow. Dang, you talked to the shadow people. You crazy. Anyways, I talked to our shadow people years ago. Told the hubs about them and other things. After a couple years, never did any harm or were and are around for a long time. Well, you braver than me. That's all I gotta say.
I've
And then
I've never
go ahead. I'm
talked to
sorry.
any of them. I'm back. I'm sorry. I had to
Oh,
step
okay.
away real quick.
No, it's all
But
good. And then what's going on, Amber? Appreciate you joining us because it's
yeah.
just not just me tonight. And then there's a single point of light that appears intermittently off Barry's left side, above his left shoulder. Yeah, they said
Oh,
that
there's a town not too far from me, but it's like maybe 6 miles back over there.
okay. Yeah, I told people say, hey, watch his camera, man. There might have been something walk by. Well,
But
he.
over my right side, I got back over there. Yeah. Yeah. Something's moving around, and I don't know what it is. That's why I keep on, looking off towards my right, is because there's something out there, and it's making a lot of noise.
Yeah, I'm surprised we ain't hearing it, especially But we're hitting an hour and 45. If y'all have any more topics that you want to talk about before we head out, we're going to try to hit the 2 hour mark. I like to hit 2 hours and then we'll get out of here. But Mr. Barry, going back to your time as a police officer, what were some other stories? I know that's a big thing. People like to hear from police officers and things like that about different stories. Any crazy, really really crazy? You're like, man, can't even believe this happened. Besides the gargoyles.
Shoot, I got called to a house. Families requesting for a police officer because the the daughter was, they call it 918, where she's mentally disturbed or something going on, and it's not a possible medical condition. But that's what dispatchers told me. So when I get to the house, I'm walking up thinking, what kind of medical condition is this? How come they didn't call for EMS? Transport the lady to the local hospital. So I get over to the door, knock on the door, and the door comes flying open. This lady's yelling and screaming at me. Where were you? What took you so long? We've been waiting for you. My husband and my two sons been holding our daughter down. I looked down, and two big guys um, holding down this young lady that was probably early 20s, maybe like 5'2", maybe 140 pounds. And these were some big guys, and they were holding her down, and they were having a hard time holding her down. So I asked them, so why are you guys holding her down? So what did she do? And they said she's possessed. And I said, what do you mean she's possessed? And they said she got taken over by the demons. Said the devil's inside her. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? Said, you need to do something. And I was like, do you have a Bible? And they looked at me and said, what are you gonna do with that? So I don't know. It's something I see in the movie where the priest hit the person that's possessed, and the demon came out. They just looked at me and got mad and said, why did you come anyways? I said, you're the one that called for us. I have no idea what to do. You should call the priest. But, you know, I started thinking about it. Then I told them, said, is she disturbing your peace? Is she preventing you guys from going to sleep? And they said, yeah. I said, well, I'm taking her to jail for disorderly conduct then. So I put her in handcuffs, and I'm 6 foot and over 250 pounds. This little girl, it took everything I had just to hold her still and keep her from fighting me off. She was, about 5'2" and 130 pounds, and she was, every time she jerked around, I was moving all over the place, and it made me feel like, am I this light where she can almost throw me around? And I got her to my patrol vehicle and got her in the back seat, and she started talking, and I didn't know what language she was talking in, but she started talking, and I could see her eyes in my rearview mirror just rolling back and forth. I was like, what the hell is going on with her?
Man, I couldn't even imagine trying to get her out the car, man. Ah.
I was getting scared then. And then she started, you know, bringing up stuff from my past. And she started like naming this place, naming uh, this person that I knew from way back when. I was thinking, do I know her? Have I talked to her before? It's like, how does she know me? But she was talking in a deep, like how do they say, a demonic voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. She was talking like that, and I was,
Oof.
and then she seen my feather because I keep a eagle feather tucked away in my visor, and that's what I use. And I also has I keep my yellow pollen inside my backpack that's next in the passenger seat, and it started saying, "You think that feather and you think that pollen's gonna keep you safe from me?" Said you could, so I will be seeing you soon. I'll be seeing you. And when I got to the jail, as soon as I opened that back door, that girl looked at me and said, why are you taking me to jail? What did I do? And I just looked at her and said, are you okay? And she said, yeah. I said, why am I in the back? Why am I in handcuffs? And she started crying. And I was like, you don't remember what happened? And she was like, no. I stood her out and said, well, you're only going to jail for disorderly conduct, but I'm going to drop it down to, public intoxication. Because I did smell some alcohol coming from her or emitting from her person. And so I took her inside and she was crying and said, why am I in jail? Why am I in jail? So after the corrections officers took her away to put her in a holding cell, they asked me, so why is she in jail for a PI? She's not that drunk. Or public intoxication, because it's an 8-hour hold just for them to sober up. They don't even go to court. They just and go to jail for 8 hours and they get released. But I told them, so I was going to take her in for disorderly conduct, but I told them what happened. They said that she did that, and I said, yeah. Said she's a good person. She goes to church. I know that family. Like they're saying stuff like that way. And I said, you should have seen her just about maybe 5 minutes before I got here. But yeah, that's one of the things that gave me that, oh crap, is this really happening moment.
Man, you gave me goosebumps, man. God. No, that's I have a spidey sense, man, and when it comes to that specific topic about people, possession, I had somebody on he is a kind of an exorcism. He helps people out, and he's a non-native, but he's been at it for a long time, and he has all these different people that he talks to, and a story that comes to my mind about something similar to that is someone who listener story who told me about a girl at a high school university out in Kansas, Lawrence,
Oh
Kansas.
yeah. My niece went there.
Yeah, man, she was saying that there was a girl walked in and she looked different than when she left. I guess they brought her there because she's kind of demon in her or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's
I've heard
crazy.
that happening over here too, not just here, but other parts. The Tohono O'odham Reservation, the Salt River, even the White Mountain Apache Reservation, stuff like that, where someone that just they walked out, then they came back. They're totally different. They had a different look about them.
Hmm. And I think I heard someone tell me, or someone told me a story, and I've told this before, but like it's like it's like their face was different. Like if their face was it was more like pronounced. Like there was more like devilish look, I guess you could say. It's not like when someone just is listening to someone talking, it's just a blank face. They kind of had a
Yeah,
smirk on their face, kind of like a devilish, like a kind of a snide. But I had someone tell me a story about a time when they were supervisor for their supervisor, and they called in one of their employees and was like, "Hey man, what's going on? You doing all right? You seem like you're not doing too well."
yeah,
And he said, "Well, I'm gonna start praying for you. Just kind of telling this employee like I'm gonna pray for you. I think we may be going through something."
yeah.
And this guy's face changed, and
So I was,
basically, yeah, his face changed, and he basically started praying, and the guy kind of snapped back into it. And he said, "Man, where am I in your office? I
so I
don't
know
remember coming in
I've
here."
I've had people say that they had a lost look about them,
Mm-hmm.
like they're just out there, but that they were there, but they weren't there, and it seemed like they were operating, but they had that like a bad look on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's always described to me, and just dealing with that young lady, just I was like, it's made me wonder: should I start carrying other stuff with me besides handcuffs and pepper spray to deal with stuff like this? Because you know, I don't know why, but for the most part, even the dispatchers, they would tell their family members or if there was an outside agency that came to assist us with a matter. And there's always that one person that always asks, "Hey, do you guys get a bunch of weird calls?" And my name was always brought up as the officer that got all these weird calls. And even the dispatchers would tell me, every time you work, something happens that just makes me like scratch my head. That did I just take that call? Did that really happen?
Man, it's
And
something's trying to get to you. Sound like something's
yeah,
trying to move its way into your life. Sound like.
yeah. And they said that every time they got that call, they said, "Oh, Barry's working. We'll give that call to Barry. Let him deal with it." I was like, "Gee, thanks."
That's cold blooded, man. That's cold blooded.
Yeah.
So
And,
we're almost hitting the 2 hour mark, and before I get you out of here, though, man, I need to hear, your. I always put people on the spot with this question, but I'm gonna do it to you tonight because it's only fair.
okay.
Let me know. Tell me your scariest story that something that really scared you. I know. I've done it. I think I've done it to everybody that's come on, man. Putting people on the spot. Just something that just you're just like, man, that really scared me. That really scared me.
But there's just one story that comes to mind. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've seen and dealt with didn't really scare me to this level, but it wasn't nothing supernatural. Well, it kind of was because, but so one night I was working and I was working with Daniel again. Everything always happens with him. But so we're sitting and we're talking because we always park our vehicles next to each other, like side by side. And he just happens to tell me, he said, "Damn, what if you get a call on the other side of the lake tonight and something happens?" And we started joking, we started laughing about it. And like an hour later, after midnight, dispatch gets a hold of me and said, "Hey, we need you to respond to the south side of the lake. Says a vehicle accident." I was thinking, damn, I looked at it and said, "Man, because of you jinxed me." I was like, "Man, okay, I'll be en route." Said EMS en route. Then they said, "No, negative. EMS will be en route after you confirm that there was an accident." So I made my way out to that side of the lake and I found a vehicle, but the vehicle was not in an accident. It was just parked on the side of the road. I even got out of my vehicle and I started walking around and checking the vehicle. And I said, "There's no damage to it. There's no flat tires. There's no skid marks on the road." And in my mind, I started thinking, "Is this an ambush? Is someone gonna pop out?" And because the police department was getting a lot of threats at that time, so I was thinking, this is someone's gonna jump out, and this is where it's gonna end for me. But I started hearing something off in the distance on the other side of the roadway, and it was over on the bushes, and there was some big saguaro cactus. But every time I shine my flashlight to the saguaro cactus, I always see a figure, step behind that cactus. And so I got my patrol vehicle, and there's no way for me to turn around at that spot where that car was. So I drove up the road. I found a place to turn around, and I started making my way back to the car. But something, told me, said, "Check the car again." So I stopped and I checked the car, and I gave dispatch the license plate, and I asked them, "Hey, can you do a record check and see if another officer can go to the residence and see if these individuals here, and ask them what their vehicle is doing here?" So I got back in my patrol vehicle, and something told me that I need to go back to where I turned around at. So I drove down the road a little ways. I turned around. I made my way back to where I had turned around before, and slowly I turned my vehicle around and start making my way back to where that vehicle was. I mean, I've never I've never freaked out like this before. all like I've been in shootouts and hostage situations and stuff like that. And I've never had that 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 fear as I had right now. And when I was coming down the road, I was coming up to a group of mesquite trees, and next thing you know, this guy just jumps out in the middle of the road, waves his hands in the air, then runs back into the mesquite trees. I step on my brakes real quick. I grab my radio, and my cousin Daniel, he said, man, I've never heard you so scared before. So you just got on the radio and said, someone just jumped in front of me. Someone just jumped in front of me. And Daniel said that, oh, this is it. This is where Barry dies. So I told dispatch too. So I'm gonna step out of my vehicle. I'm gonna do a welfare check on that mail. I think, oh, this is where I'm gonna be taken, God. This is where I'm gonna be taken. So I put my radio down. I put my vehicle in park. I jumped out of my patrol vehicle, grabbed my pistol out, and I had the flashlight. I think, oh, this is where I'm gonna end. This is where it ends for me.
Oh
But I
man.
make my way to the mesquite tree woods, and it's a drop off, and I'm standing there thinking, man, it's gonna come out again. It's gonna come out. But instead of finding something that was terrifying or scary, was at the bottom of the slope. It was a wash, and there was a little mud puddle. From that vehicle, it was an elderly couple, and they were out there gathering some firewood. And what the guy said was somehow his wife's door opened, and she came tumbling out and rolled down and got stuck in that mud puddle. And when he tried to go down there to help her, the car rolled away from them. And when I found it down the road from where they were at was where it came to a rest. And they sat there most of the night, and the guy tried to start a fire, but it was so cold that the fire kept on going out. And and when he saw me pass the first time, he was trying to yell at me, down here, but I didn't stop. And when he saw me come the second time, that's when he told his wife that he was going to jump out and wave me down instead of wave me down. Man, he really scared me good. But I, I that's when I tell some younger officers that I train. I tell them, hey, you have that spidey sense when something's not right. Just follow it. Sometimes it might be terrifying, but you never know. Somebody might need your help, and you'll come across something that's least unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when that happened.
Man, you had me, man. I was like, oh well, gosh, but it sounded like though too that sometimes it's just crazy. You just get that sense like, oh, I shouldn't leave here. There's something here that I need to
Yeah.
figure out.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
you made the round this morning. You're like, man, I feel like I'm not saying all or
Yeah.
or most. I'm just saying some people just be like, well, I think it's just an abandoned car. Let's just see if we can
Yeah.
keep it moving. But that sixth sense got like you were talking about earlier. Got a hold of you there.
Oh yeah. Wasn't a pleasant one, but hey, someone got to go home. Somebody got to hug their grandma and grandpa for however long they they've been around, or they are around. We didn't get a call the next day of elderly couple that was found frozen out there in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
They actually went home safe and sound.
Yeah. There's a comment here that said that was a good scary story with even better ending.
Yeah.
Man, because sometimes I hear some of these stories and I'm like, God, that ended terrible. Like, oh man, that's bad. That's not good. But we hit past the 2 hour mark, man. Mr. Barry, I appreciate you coming on, man. I was hoping, like I said, I was kind of hoping, like I was hoping that sometimes you reach out to people and they're like, yeah, or they don't really respond
Yeah.
back, or they give you some
Yeah.
type of But I appreciate you, man, getting right back to me. And
Hey, thanks for the invite.
yeah, man, I had such a good time, man. Sometimes, doing a podcast and trying to be consistent, and with the holidays coming up, Christmas, all stuff. I
Yeah,
start, eat a little too much turkey, too much ham, just
definitely.
start getting lazy,
Yeah.
but I appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of these stories and a lot of knowledge too, because that's one thing that I'm starting to realize is that we're all pretty similar. Us natives, we all kind of believe in something, but it's just a little tweak depending on where we're at.
Yeah. 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 I'm realizing the same way. We might have different languages, not speak the same way, but some of our beliefs and stuff we grew up learning, it's similar. There's all some similarity to it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So for everyone who has never heard of you or your stories, where can they find you?
Well, I'm basically just on TikTok for now. I did change my name. Someone tried to take over and use the name that I gathered that or the Apache Storyteller. Someone made a fake account, so I recently changed my name to Ollie, Oli, Beary, spelled like this way right here. It's on TikTok.
And I'll make sure that I have a link in the description. And for everyone who's listening on the back end, please, please, please. That's one thing that as someone who's trying to bridge a few more gaps with people from different places. Please go and support him on TikTok, and then whenever you decide to drop that podcast, man, you let me know. I'll help you
Oh,
out. I'll do what I can.
yeah, me and my cousin did that. We started it. We still want to get back into it, but Paranormal Reservation.
Okay.
Paranormal Reservation is our podcast. We do have some stories up still on Spotify and Apple, and I can't remember the other one, but we want to get back into it. We're just having some technical difficulties with finding the right equipment.
Man, one thing too about StreamYard, it's basically I have a mic and I have a soundboard and all that stuff, but man, really all you need is what you have right now. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's a StreamYard, man. It. A lot of people complain about it, but it makes life easier for me because basically I can just take the video from it, and it goes, streams directly to YouTube, and that's your show. You do it once a week. And it saved a lot of time for me because I was recording, and a lot of times I catch myself saying something like it's different when it's live. People are listening, and then
yeah.
people can respond back. So it's a little easier for me to talk because I'm getting
Okay.
live interaction. But yeah, man, I'd like to. Yeah, if I have to go check that out. And so for everyone that's listening, Paranormal Reservation, and then Ollie. Uh, is
Barry.
it Ollie dot Barry?
Uh, Ollie underscore Barry.
Okay. And so go follow him, guys. Like I said, we want to support people that come on this show because I said this from the very beginning. I've always been very selective, and Mr. Barry here has a lot of good content, a lot of good stories. He's got a lot of funny ones too. Dang, I saw one video. I think you had somebody out there looking rugged, man.
Yeah,
God, I was like, man, he's getting everything over here. He's getting the spooky and the ruggedness. But like I
yeah.
said, guys, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've I've had an interesting life.
Hey, man, that's it's definitely a good thing though because now you got all these stories and from just the chat tonight, man, it sounds like some people want to hear what you got to say. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
that'd be great. I mean, I'm not. I keep an open mind. I like talking to people. Always encourage people. If you want to start up, because I had a couple of questions. People asked me, "How did I get started up?" I said, "Shoot, I just got bored one night, and I seen some officers tell their stories, so I figured I might as well tell my stories. And
yeah,
if anybody listen, they listen. If not, okay."
yeah, yeah, for sure. But all right, guys, you guys can find me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger. shoot me a message. Let me know where you heard me. I've had a few people reach out. I appreciate that. If you have a story or an encounter or want to send me a picture of Bigfoot prints or whatever, I've had people send me Bigfoot prints. I'm like, dang, I don't know if this is the FBI's will come get me or I'll be getting kind of nervous, man. But
I used to have a picture of one.
Man, I always feel weird having them. If people will send them, I'm like, I feel like I got illegal stuff on my phone now. It's like, oh, like they're gonna be coming to get me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but the Bigfoot evidence, man, just makes me. I don't know, but send it to me. I'd like to see it. I may delete it as soon as I get it. No, I'm just kidding. But
put in a secret file.
Yeah, I mean, I had to lock it away. Had to print it out and put it in a safe somewhere in a lockbox somewhere two cities away. No, but realwarcrypod@gmail.com. The Patreon is up. There's going to be an episode over the Lucky Star Casino and the real story behind it. I got to redact some things. I got some people that are, that have shared information, and I don't want to put them out there, and things like that because I don't want to put anybody out there who it's still kind of a touchy subject out that way in Cheyenne, Arapahoe country, but I appreciate everyone who has continued to support the podcast. TikTok, Warcry Pod, and then X or Twitter, Warcry Pod. But I appreciate Mr. Beary coming on and telling us great stories. And I will be putting his info in the description below, so you guys can check him out and his future podcast. Hopefully you get that up and running quickly.
Hopefully soon.
So hopefully soon. And like I said, guys, I appreciate everyone who continues to support the podcast, and I'm going to catch y'all on the next one.
All right. Thank you. Later.